Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a story so unsettling, so steeped in the macabre, that its echoes will probably cling to you long after our conversation ends.
It's a tough one, definitely.
Imagine, if you will, a quiet Indian village, Manwath, a place where life once unfolded at, the unhurried pace of the sun, where the rhythmic hum of everyday existence should have promised tranquility.
Right, the kind of place you picture as peaceful.
Exactly, but instead, that peace was brutally shattered, transforming the very soil into a canvas for unimaginable horror, painted with, well, desperate belief, deep-seated superstitions, and cunning, cold-blooded manipulation.
Indeed, we're about to embark on a deep dive into the chilling, almost unbelievable case of the Manwath murders. And this isn't merely recounting a series of crimes. It's really a profound journey into the darkest corners of human desperation.
Exploring how something as seemingly ordinary as an ancient fig tree,
And Peepal Tree.
the yearning for a child, and the insidious lure of hidden treasure could conspire to unleash a chain of brutal, ritualistic sacrifices.
Exactly. We'll navigate through some perplexing police inaction, the agonizing and frankly courageous breaking of a village's terrified silence, and the twisted, sometimes deeply frustrating path of justice that ultimately unfolded.
Our mission today is to thoroughly unpack the sources you've provided, meticulously extracting the most vital nuggets of insight from articles, police reports, research papers, personal notes, everything that reveals the full, horrifying scope of this saga.
Consider this your shortcut, if you will, to understanding this complex, deeply disturbing, and undeniably unique chapter in Indian criminal history.
And what immediately stands out, what sends a shiver down your spine from the very first reports, is that initial police response. Bodies were being found, women, children disappearing.
Ah,
Yet these incidents were consistently overlooked, treated as isolated tragedies, even as a terrifying and, let's face it, undeniable pattern was slowly, chillingly emerging from the shadows.
what's truly fascinating and deeply disturbing here is the context. The context that allowed such a horrifying pattern to remain hidden in plain sight for so long.
Yeah.
The initial perception from the early reports, it hinted at an almost dystopian isolation within this small Indian village town. There was a sense that initially the wider community seemed to, well, almost not care about disappearing women.
Which sounds awful, but
But it wasn't necessarily a true lack of empathy, I think. It was more a tragic reflection of underlying societal dynamics. The source material painfully illustrates that the victims were typically from those vulnerable strata poor backgrounds or, lower within the village's rigid social hierarchy.
okay, so that played a huge role.
A huge role. This, unfortunately, led to what was described as a callous attitude from some authorities, or at least a distinct lack of persistent, high-level investigation. The justification given: no investigation was leading anywhere, and there were no connections between them that were found.
So convenience almost,
Yeah.
or just inability to see.
Maybe a bit of both. This tragic oversight, this devastating failure to connect the dots, it just continued, allowing the darkness to fester, until one pivotal, blood-soaked day changed absolutely everything.
So let's unpack this silence of Manwath. A silence that became, in a way, an accomplice to the unfolding horror, and explore its brutal, shocking awakening.
Because even before the full grotesque truth burst into the open, for over a year, there had been these unsettling whispers rippling through the village.
Really? For that long?
Yeah. Murmurs in hushed tones about a tree, about large amounts of money, and most disturbingly, about sacrifices. It was as if the very air itself had become thick with unspoken dread, a premonition of the terror to come, yet it was dismissed or ignored by those who should have intervened.
And the setting itself, Manwath.
Crucial. Absolutely crucial. Manwath truly was a small, quiet village, nestled amidst fields, a place where the rhythm of life was dictated by the sun's slow arc across the sky, not the frantic ticking of a clock.
Like a serene backdrop.
The perfect camouflage, really, for growing terror. The local police, tragically, kept treating each incident, a murder here, a tragedy there, as the source puts it, as if it were an isolated, unconnected event.
Tunnel vision.
Complete tunnel vision. It meant that even though what would later be revealed as the 10th victim in less than 14 months had already occurred, they utterly failed to connect the dots or grasp the true scale of the horror unfolding right under their noses. The notion that these were disparate events led to a fragmented, ineffective response. It allowed a truly systemic evil to take root and flourish.
And it begs the question, doesn't it? Why was there this perceived indifference, this catastrophic blind spot you mentioned?
Well, our sources are quite stark here. They point out that the women dying were disproportionately from poor backgrounds or lower within the village's social hierarchy.
Ah, okay.
This, combined with the, let's say, cunning way the crimes were initially carried out, making connections difficult, it created a vacuum of urgent investigation.
It's a chilling reminder of how societal biases, even subconscious ones, can tragically influence the depth and rigor of a law enforcement response.
Absolutely. This tragic vacuum, as you said, became fertile ground where evil could thrive, unseen, unchecked, and utterly unpunished. It raises that deeply uncomfortable question for us to ponder. How much does the societal perception of a victim's inherent worth tragically influence the urgency and depth of an investigation?
It's a disturbing thought.
The fact that the initial police response didn't escalate, that resources weren't immediately poured into these cases despite a growing body count, it suggests a fundamental breakdown in prioritizing all lives equally. This insidious bias, perhaps ingrained, led directly to continued impunity for the perpetrators and an unimaginable toll on the vulnerable lives of Manwath.
All of that simmering, unsettling silence, that quiet, paralyzing fear, it just shattered violently and irrevocably on January 4th, 1974.
The day everything changed.
Picture this scene for a moment. It's just before noon. The sun is high, casting long, sharp shadows. A farmhand named Umarji Patale is making his way towards the very edge of his master's sun-baked land in Manwath.
Just going about his day.
Exactly. A job to do. And in this part of the world, as the source vividly recounts, nobody watches the clock. They watch the sun, its steady ascent and descent, marking the rhythm of their lives.
Umarji, following his routine, steps onto a raised wooden platform, what locals call a mala. These are typically makeshift structures used for crop watching, giving farmers an elevated view of their fields.
A vantage point.
A crucial one.
Yeah.
This particular mala afforded him a clear, unobstructed panorama of the surrounding landscape. A vantage point that, unbeknownst to him, was about to make him a horrified, helpless witness to something truly deeply horrific.
And what does he see?
At first, it's utterly mundane, a snapshot of everyday village life. A woman, Haripai, walking slowly, her gait steady despite the load. One arm cradles an infant, a tiny baby named Kamal, tucked securely. Her other arm expertly balances a food basket on her head. A young girl, Taramati, perhaps 9 or 10, follows closely behind her, her worn chapels kicking up dry reddish soil with each small step.
Umarji knew them, of course. In a village this small, everyone knew everyone. Haripai, her daughter Taramati, and the baby Kamal were simply on their way to deliver lunch to Haripai's husband, working in a nearby field.
A picture of innocent, routine village life.
A moment of tranquil normalcy before it was violently, incomprehensibly ripped apart.
And then the horror unfolds, swiftly, chillingly precise. The source describes it in harrowing detail. Out of nowhere, 4 men step into the path.
4 men.
4. And what's particularly unsettling, what speaks volumes about the premeditated nature of their act, is their demeanor. They don't run, they don't shout, no panic, no hurried movement. It's like they're just performing a task.
God.
One man grabs Haripai from behind, locks her arms, helpless. Another, with almost surgical calm, pulls out an axe. Before she can scream, he swings. The axe arcs silently in the sun. The baby, Kamal, slips from her grasp, hits the ground with a sickening thud. Taramati, the young girl, shrinks back, tries desperately to run, but 2 other men are already on her, moving with the same horrifying efficiency, and another axe comes down.
Just like that, in broad daylight.
From his elevated platform, Umarji watches it all unfold, frozen, speechless, can't move, can't cry out. An image seared into his mind, an indelible stain.
I can't even imagine.
And then as calmly and terrifyingly as they appeared, the men don't look around, they don't run, they walk away, calm, steady, like the job in their hands is done.
That detail, the calm departure, it's beyond chilling.
It foreshadows the ritualistic nature that will later be uncovered. And what's even more perplexing and deeply human is Umarji's immediate reaction. Instead of rushing to the police, instead of raising an alarm,
He freezes.
or runs, he climbs down quietly, unties his horse, and walks away too. He disappears for 4 whole days, telling not a single soul.
Out of fear, presumably, absolute terror.
Overwhelming terror. This delayed witness account became a critical, agonizing piece of the story's slow, painful unraveling, a testament to the paralyzing fear gripping the village.
So the bodies are just left there.
The immediate aftermath reveals an almost incomprehensible oversight. Later that day, villagers stumble upon Haripai's lifeless body lying exposed in the field. Police are called immediately.
Okay, so someone finds her.
Yes, but the source highlights a shocking, truly heartbreaking detail. It takes hours before anyone notices the two dead kids, Taramati and Kamal. They're in the same field, just a few feet away.
Hours? How is that possible?
The chilling conclusion drawn later by investigators. No one looked for them, no one expected them, maybe no one wanted to. A grim indictment of a system that had grown accustomed to loss.
And back at the station, do they finally realize something bigger is happening?
Not yet. The discovery of Haripai's body, and tragically, even the later discovery of her children, doesn't trigger a high-level alert. It's treated like any other crime scene.
Just another murder in Manwath.
Exactly. Another woman killed in Manwath, another investigation that probably won't lead anywhere. They remained shockingly oblivious that this was victim number 10, a horrifying escalation, and, crucially, that for the first time, they actually had a witness, though they wouldn't know about Umarji for days.
And the scene itself, what did it look like?
Profoundly disturbing. Haribai was found slumped in the dirt, her arms still curled protectively around her youngest daughter, a final, heartbreaking gesture.
Oh, God.
9-year-old Taramati splayed beside her, eyes wide open, lifeless, her young face frozen in terror. Kamal, barely a toddler, had suffered the same cruel fate. 3 generations of women wiped out in broad daylight.
It should have set off every alarm bell.
It should have. Yet no obvious motive at the scene, no theft, no weapon left behind, no apparent struggle beyond the blood. All 3 killed cleanly, deliberately, almost clinically.
Which makes it even scarier.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It pointed directly to a calculated, planned act, a ritualistic execution, rather than a crime of passion. A detail the initial investigators tragically missed, or perhaps simply couldn't fathom.
Okay, so here's where things start to change, maybe. A new investigator arrives.
Yes, this is where it gets really interesting, and where the first glimmer of hope emerges. CID officer Ramakant Kulkarni, a seasoned investigator, is dispatched from Mumbai to take charge.
From Mumbai, so an outsider's perspective.
Exactly. He steps into a village gripped by suffocating fear, shrouded in layers of superstition and mistrust. The moment Kulkarni sets foot in Manwath, he intuitively grasps this isn't just a murder case. His instinct screams it's something else, something deeper.
He senses the darkness.
He does. He would later describe the investigation as trying to make bricks from scattered pieces of clay, a fitting analogy for the fragmented, elusive nature of the evidence he faced.
So what does he do first?
Kulkarni, with a fresh perspective and renewed determination alongside his deputies, immediately begins digging, pulling records, meticulously chasing down every rumor, every faint lead, no matter how improbable.
Leaving no stone unturned.
Right. And the deeper they dig, the stranger the patterns become. It rapidly becomes clear these are not crimes of rage, but chillingly methodical and ritualistic killings.
The specifics must have been horrific.
Horrific. One victim had a throat slit, another her head severed, and most disturbingly, blood drawn deliberately from private parts, of all things. The source emphasizes this detail. It's all too specific to be a coincidence.
So not random acts of violence.
But not. Initially, the sheer number of missing people in these gruesome, consistent patterns lead Kulkarni's team to believe they are dealing with a single, brutal serial killer.
Which makes sense, given the pattern.
It does. They search relentlessly for this lone wolf, but find nothing, no clue. Days, agonizing days, go by without any tangible progress. The village remains on edge. The mystery only deepens.
And then a breakthrough.
A turning point. A faint flicker of light. A crucial moment arrives with the anonymous delivery of a handwritten letter. Careful in its accusations, yet undeniably bold.
An anonymous letter. What did it say?
It explicitly states it's not a serial killer. And then it begins to name names, pulling back the veil on a conspiracy far more intricate and disturbing than anyone had imagined.
Names. Who?
The letter points directly to Udam Rao, a figure well known in Manwath, a former municipal councillor, a man of considerable local influence, now operating as a liquor bootlegger from the shadows.
Okay, prominent figure, but
described as a wealthy, upper-caste villager, respected and feared, importantly, not a murderous thug with any known history of such violence. This immediately challenges the police's serial killer theory.
Right, it doesn't fit the profile they were likely building.
Exactly. It forces them to pivot their entire focus. And the letter goes even further. It suggests another name entirely. A woman, Rukmini, Udam Rao's mistress.
His mistress. Wow, okay.
This shatters conventional assumptions, adds an unexpected layer of complexity. And finally, the letter points directly to the Peepal Tree, the ancient sacred fig tree rooted firmly in her courtyard as the epicenter of this mystery.
The tree again. It keeps coming back.
It does. This shifts the entire focus, drawing the police into a darker, more complex web of superstition, desperation, and conspiracy than they could have possibly imagined. It was no longer about tracking a lone killer, but unraveling a collective madness.
So to really understand how 10 people, girls, women, and infant ended up dead, we have to go inside Rukmini's house, metaphorically speaking, and understand that tree.
Precisely. Rukmini herself was a Parthi woman in her early 30s, described as being long past the age most in her community had children. That detail is critical. It speaks volumes about the societal pressures, the personal anxiety she must have faced.
Tell us about the Parthi community.
The source explains their name literally means hunting, tracing lineage back to Parthi Mastev from the Maratha. Historically, from Rajputs, they spread into Gujarat and Maharashtra. But by this time, they primarily lived subsistence lifestyles, barely making ends meet.
So Rukmini was from a relatively poor background.
Yes, modest circumstances, she lived alone, at least on paper. Uttam Rao, the man of means, married, higher caste, non-Parthi, visited her often. He was her mistress, provided support, even brought her the house, telling her she deserves more than backroom shadows and whispered meetings. For a while, she desperately wanted to believe him.
But despite this relationship, she wanted something more.
A child. Desperately. A soul-consuming desire. By the early 1970s, years passing without conception, she became utterly convinced, or perhaps was subtly convinced by others, that something supernatural is blocking her womb.
The superstition angle starts to really take hold.
Exactly. This deep personal anxiety, this profound yearning for motherhood, became the agonizing, vulnerable gateway through which the horrors of Manwath would soon enter.
And this is where the con man comes in. Ganpat Salve.
This is precisely where Ganpat Salve enters the narrative, a shadowy figure who preys on desperation. Ganpat, the source makes painstakingly clear, was not a doctor, nor even a proper tantric, a genuine spiritual practitioner.
So, just a fraud.
In chilling truth, nothing more than a con man with a long practice of exploiting women like Rukmini, desperate, poor, and utterly alone. He had an uncanny ability to tell her precisely what she was already halfway ready to believe. Her infertility wasn't medical, but profoundly mystical.
How did he convince her?
He ingeniously invents the story of Munja, a Brahmin boy who he claimed died before he could marry and whose angry, unfulfilled spirit now lives under the Peepal Tree in her courtyard.
The tree in her courtyard, okay.
And Ganpat claimed this Munja spirit was not only angry, but also hungry, and crucially, that it could be appeased with blood.
Blood. Here we go.
But not just any blood, it had to be virgin blood, specifically. And chillingly, it must be drawn from their private parts.
Oh my God, that's specific and horrifying.
This blood, he instructed, then had to be mixed into offerings, sprinkled over food, and presented like naivya, a devotional offering, during a sacred puja under the tree. And here's a bizarre, almost ludicrous detail. This ritual blood had to be collected and offered in a very specific, incongruous, German steel bowl.
A German steel bowl? Why?
The sheer specificity, even that anachronistic detail, it just speaks to the carefully constructed deception Ganpat wove. It adds a layer of seeming authenticity, however absurd.
And the payoff for these offerings?
Ganpat, weaving his manipulative web tighter, promised that only after a puja, only after a sacrifice, would Munja open the earth and reveal the treasure trove it supposedly guarded beneath the tree.
Treasure. So there's greed involved too.
Yes. And only then, he solemnly declared, would Rukmini's body open and give her child.
It sounds utterly, profoundly absurd now, looking back.
Completely absurd. But the source tragically emphasizes that in that moment, under that tree, with the suffocating shame and raw desperation clinging at her, Rukmini believed it, with every fiber of her being. And so too did Uttam Rao, at least enough to act.
Enough to let this horror proceed.
Yes. The old saying, every con man needs a believer, is twisted here. Because in this case, a desperate belief came first, and Ganpat Pagoji simply stepped into the vacuum human greed and profound despair created.
Rukmini's desperation. It must have been immense.
Incredibly deep. Sources describe her experiencing premature menopause and how the absence of blood feels like the absence of purpose for her. In that society, a woman's worth often tied to bearing children, her value as a woman in her 30s, unmarried, holding onto a relationship with a man above her caste, was, as the source grimly states, hanging by a thread.
Children could have anchored her, she thought.
Exactly. Now she felt drifting. This desperate void led to a terrifying conclusion. Blood shall be drawn for blood. a twisted exchange for her lost hope.
And Udamrao, what was his angle? Just the treasure.
Uttamrao, while a Brahmin, was no spiritual man traditionally. His beliefs were rooted more in the tangible. Yet he believed fervently in gods and destiny, and his destiny, he was convinced, was tangled in the gnarled roots of the Peepal Tree, where his mother had once hidden a family treasure. Munja now guarded this wealth.
So he genuinely believed this spirit-controlled access to the treasure.
He genuinely believed offering blood, offering a life, was the only way to make him relent and reveal it. This dual motivation, Rukmini's heart-wrenching desire for a child and Udamrao's covetous greed for wealth, combined in a macabre synergy,
Fueling in horror.
fueling the escalating, unimaginable horror that was about to unfold.
And so the chilling, meticulously choreographed ritual began. Ganpat tells them exactly what they want to hear.
Feeding their hopes, their greed. The rituals, he insisted, must be precise. Virgin blood, specific body part, the German steel bowl. The timing critical, and above all, belief must be unshakable.
The stage was set.
For absolute madness.
Who was the first victim?
The first innocent life sacrificed was an 11-year-old girl named Gayabai, November 14th, 1972. She vanished on her way to a relative's home, swallowed by the quiet village roads.
Just disappeared.
Her mutilated body was found days later. A horrifying discovery, but it sent murmurs, little more, through the community. Initial reaction, muted, resigned. A tragedy, maybe a wild animal, or chillingly, someone from the party community.
Blaming the community.
Whispers were biting and ugly, tinged with baseless suspicion. But tragically, no one suspected what really happened. No one conceived of the depravity. Gaya Pai was abducted by Shankar Kathi, Uttamrao's trusted servant and farmhand, yes. Acting on the instructions of Gampat and the central duo, Rukmini and Uttamrao, Shankar Kathi, the source reveals, becomes a key foot soldier. His name will resurface.
And the ritual.
Her blood was collected in silence and offered to the roots of the Peepal Tree. A grotesque perversion. But as the source grimly notes with stark irony, the earth doesn't tremble, the tree doesn't split open, and treasures stay hidden.
The first sacrifice yielded nothing but horror.
Nothing. Less than a month later, with the failure, Ganpat, the puppet master, insisted the ritual must be repeated. He cunningly claimed Munja was stubborn, needed to be shown resolve through further offerings.
Oh, God. So another one?
December 9th, 1972. Shakila, just 10 years old, disappears without a sound, found lifeless. Her fate, like Gaya Bai's, sealed by belief. Her blood, too, poured beneath the ancient roots.
And still nothing.
Still nothing. The anxiety inside Rukmini and Uttamrao's house thickens, heavier with each failed ritual. Yet outside, the village remains silent, trapped in fear and inaction.
This is where it takes an even darker turn, isn't it? The demand changes.
Yes, a truly sickening turn. Escalating desperation, the con man's twisted ingenuity. February 1973, 2 failed virgin sacrifices. Ganpat audaciously changed the demand. He claimed virgins aren't enough. The spirit now craves the menstrual blood of a grown woman.
That's just vile.
A shocking escalation. Enter Sugandha Bai, 35 years old, familiar face locally. The killers emboldened, even bolder now, operating with chilling lack of fear. Her blood collected, offered. And yet again, with trembling hands, Rukmini still doesn't conceive that treasure still sleeps. The grim tally climbs, fueled by relentless, unyielding obsession.
It's astonishing, mind-boggling how utterly absurd this sounds, laying out the facts, but their belief, their conviction was so absolute.
It really was. We've covered cases before where superstition played a role, but this, as the source implies, crosses a line into something absolutely absurd. It's no longer just ignorance or lack of education, it's perverse.
And Rukmini and Uttamrao themselves, they changed, don't they?
Profoundly. Chillingly. They might have initially seemed victims of Ganpat's deceit, but as the murders continue, as they participate, they transform. Perpetrators, actively complicit.
Not just victims anymore.
Not at all. While historically, witchcraft allegations targeted women like Rukmini, beautiful, lower caste here, she wasn't just a victim. She was, as the source chillingly states, orchestrating it like a psychopath.
Wow.
It's a profound psychological metamorphosis. Human lives become utterly dehumanized, mere instruments for their selfish ends. They weren't just caught in a web, they became active, psychopathic participants.
So the frustration is mounting. What happens next?
Escalation into furious obsession. April 13th, 1973. No child, no treasure. Nasima, 10 years old, becomes the fourth victim. This time a grotesque upgrade. Even more barbaric, her head and small fingers are severed.
Oh, God, no. Why?
In their twisted logic, Munja required these symbols of wisdom and sacrifice. Her head placed beneath the tree, fingers buried separately. Horrifying testament to their escalating madness. Still, Munja remained silent.
How did this affect them? Rukmini and Uttam Rao.
The toll began to show. Rukmini grew more despondent, hope curdling into despair. Uttam Rao more paranoid, consumed by fear of exposure, failure.
And Gampat, the con man.
Sensing his act is wearing thin, perhaps fearing their desperation, Ganpat cleverly collects a few hundred rupees, his blood money, and disappeared to Baramati. Vanishes without trace, not seen for a long, long time.
But the murders, they continue, even without him.
Crucially, yes, the murders don't stop. The obsession had taken root so deeply within Rukmini and Uttam Rao that the momentum, now self-sustaining, continued its horrifying trajectory.
The conspiracy started to spread.
It expands, pulling more souls into its dark orbit. June 29, 1973, Kalavati, a 30-year-old woman, murdered by two new party entrants into this conspiracy. Names not revealed in open court. They believed, or pretended to, that this time it would work.
Still nothing.
Still elusive treasure. Less than 2 weeks later, Halima, just 11, becomes the next target. July 12th. Her murder, chillingly orchestrated almost as a routine, a testament to how normalized terror had become. The conspiracy kept expanding, sucking in newer complexes, new faces, new hands. No longer just belief, terrifying self-perpetuating momentum.
Were the police doing anything during this time?
It's important to note, they weren't entirely idle. Though efforts were disjointed, ineffective, arrests, inquiries were underway, sporadic, frustrated.
Did they ever suspect Rukmini and Uttam Rao?
Shockingly, yes. They were even taken into custody for questioning. But displaying their influence and cunning, they quickly managed bail on October 4th that year. Returned to Manwath, seemingly untouchable. Back to the scene.
Unbelievable. And then...
Here's where the manipulation reaches a terrifying new level. While Rukmini and Uttam Rao were supposedly in police custody, away from Manwath, Parvati Bai, 35, was brutally murdered. October 4th, 1973.
While they were in custody.
Yes. This murder felt different. A little more desperate, a chillingly strategic move. Not just to appease Munja, but a brazen, cynical act to prove something to the world and to the police, that the real conspirators were still out there.
A diversion.
A clear, premeditated diversion, a cover-up, designed to throw investigators off, reinforce their supposed innocence.
How could they manage that from custody?
Despite being held, Uttam Rao, with his significant reach and network, was able to send letters out of the police station to his accomplices, pulling strings from behind bars.
Still the orchestrator.
Hiding away from the stage in the background, yet controlling the macabre performance. The rituals, the murders continued. Still nothing. Child unconceived, treasure unearthed. Uttam Rao's frustration must have turned into cold, seething fury. The cycle seemed destined to continue endlessly.
Which brings us back, full circle, to the final catalytic triple murder. Harivai, Taramati, and Baby Kamal, January 4th, 1974.
Yes. Deputy Superintendent of Police Wagmer had taken charge. Already under pressure from previous investigations yielding no real breakthroughs. Suspects arrested, released, rearrested. Patrol teams stationed across Manwath searching, yet women and girls kept vanishing.
And this triple murder happens right near a patrol.
An unfathomable failure of policing. It occurred merely 200 feet from where the murder occurred, almost chillingly, under the nose of an active patrol that was stationed a few hundred meters away. And yet, no one saw anything. No one heard cries. The court later remarked with damning clarity that they were murdered under the very nose of the policemen, yet the culprits could escape with impunity. It speaks volumes about the perpetrator's cunning, but also the horrifying complacency or fear gripping the village and authorities.
But this time, there's a witness, Umarji Patale.
Unlike earlier murders, this incident sparked a shift. There was a witness. Umarji, the terrified farmhand who fled, finally, miraculously came forward. His account hesitant but vivid. Fragmented by trauma, yet clear in core details.
He saw it all from the mala.
Confirmed seeing it. Admitted, heartbreakingly, he hadn't shouted, hadn't run to help, he was too afraid. But crucially, in his terror, he absorbed details. He remembers faces and names. This single, brave, yet fearful testimony became the crack in the wall, the first real hope.
So the arrests finally begin in earnest.
The dam had finally broken. January 8th, just 4 days after the triple murder, arrests began. 3 local Partiwala men picked up. A few days later, another. They didn't confess immediately, but police, driven by new momentum, armed with Umarji's testimony, meticulously collected physical evidence.
What kind of evidence?
January 11th, one accused party man, under interrogation, led them to a concealed axe blade hidden behind a cupboard in his home. Blade bloodstained. Serological tests confirmed human blood of Group A, same as Hardy's.
A direct link?
Concrete. Evidence mounted. Another party man's clothes, seized on a rest bush shirt. Doty also had traces of blood, also Group A. Medical exam revealed bite marks on his hands.
Ugh.
Wounds, prosecution leader argued, were inflicted by Harapai during her desperate struggle to free herself.
Wow, her last act of defiance.
Possibly. He was also linked through another recovered axe blade. Again, Group A blood. A torn shirt sleeve near the crime scene matched a burnt fabric remnant discovered buried underneath a heap of earth in one arrested man's home.
So the net is closing in on the foot soldiers.
For the first time in 2 agonizing years, the investigation gained real, undeniable traction. These arrested individuals were the foot soldiers, carrying out atrocities, not the masterminds, Uttam Rao or Rukmini, but the crucial concrete link deeper into the conspiracy.
But the police wanted the masterminds too, right? What about Gampat?
Police weren't content with just foot soldiers, still chasing the central web. They knew Gampat brought the rituals, the Munja lore. Rumors placed him in Baramati, but no confirmed sightings surface. Eventually found brought in.
And did he talk?
Gampat, facing the full weight of the law, was offered pardon in exchange for testimony, approver status. He could turn state's witness for a lighter sentence or pardon. But what he provided, not testimony, it's theater.
Theater, how so?
Gampat, ever the performer, claimed he was merely the original advisor, prescribing blood rituals. Name names: Rukmini, Uttam Rao, Sopan, Shankar. But his credibility collapses under questioning.
So his testimony was useless.
The judges later wrote he was an utterly worthless witness whose evidence has been rightly discarded by the High Court, calling his entire story incredible and abound in contradictions of the gravest kind. The architect's testimony: useless, bizarre twist.
But there was another approver, Shankar Kathe.
Amidst the deceit, one witness survives scrutiny: Shankar Kathe. The farmhand who abducted Gayabai now turned approver. He admitted, shockingly, direct involvement in 4 murders: Gaihai, Shakila, Sugandabai, and Narasimha.
He confessed to 4 murders.
Yes. Provided specific visceral details: how girls were lured, gagged, and killed, how blood was collected in steel bowls offered to Munja under the Peepal Tree. His confession, self-incriminating, was corroborated by other evidence.
Like what?
Like the grim discovery of 27 skull fragments stained with the same blood group as Gayabai's. Fragments attributed to Sopan Rambal Salve, who Shankar claimed was his accomplice in those 4 killings.
Why confess like that? Was it the approver deal?
It's an interesting point. Sources indicate that with 18 people eventually on trial, the leeway that the judiciary grants you was quite great if you were the first one to take the approval status. A legal lifeline, a powerful motivator. Shankar's direct participation and willingness to expose details made his testimony immensely significant. The crucial link.
So the case finally goes to trial properly.
Yes, the case, now massive, went beyond local police. The Sessions Court in Parbani took it up. 18 people stand trial. Servants, spiritual advisors, neighbors, all entangled in the bloody tapestry.
18 people, that's huge.
2 Gampat and Shankar turned approvers. 1 accused died during trial. 5 acquitted at Sessions level, perhaps insufficient evidence linking them directly. But 7 to 8 are ultimately convicted.
Including Rukmini and Uttam Rao?
Yes. Among those convicted, seemingly a victory for justice, were the alleged masterminds, Rukmini and Uttam Rao, sentenced to death under Section 302 with 120B and 109 of the IPC. Murder, conspiracy, abetment. 3 others got life imprisonment. It seemed then the scales were finally balancing.
But there's always a but in these cases, isn't there?
As often happens, all parties appealed to the Bombay High Court. The High Court took a hard look at the evidence, re-evaluating meticulously. And in a dramatic, almost unbelievable turn, it found the conspiracy thread weak.
Weak, after all that.
In a landmark judgment, Justice Y.V. Chandrachud delivered a verdict that sent shockwaves. He wrote, "The charge of conspiracy having failed, and it being common ground that Rukmini and Uttam Rao had not taken any direct part in the commission of the murders, the High Court held that they were entitled to acquittal on all the charges."
So they were let go because they didn't physically do the killing.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
The court reasoned that while they may have instigated, their direct physical participation wasn't sufficiently proven under strict legal definitions. So in an outcome-defying common understanding of justice, the alleged masterminds, Rukmini and Uttam Rao, walked free.
Walked free after everything. That's unbelievable.
And still, remarkably, the story doesn't end there. The saga went to the highest judicial body, the Supreme Court of India. Final, definitive word.
What did the Supreme Court say?
The Supreme Court, in a powerful, uncompromising ruling, concluded that nothing short of death sentence can atone for such callous and calculated transgression of law. Orbit pity can have no place in the assessment of murders which will remain unparalleled in the annals of crime. A powerful moral condemnation.
So who did they sentence?
Ultimately, Farman, Sopanram Halsave, and 3 of his party accomplices, the actual foot soldiers who carried out the acts, hands covered in blood, were sentenced to death. They were hanged in 1979, paying the ultimate price.
The foot soldiers hanged, the masterminds free.
And this brings us to the chilling, ironic, deeply unsettling conclusion. We've journeyed through a terrifying tale of desperate human desire, twisted into monstrous acts under the shadow of a sacred tree. We've witnessed superstition, greed, manipulation create horrors, and how the scales of justice and their unique, frustrating balance weighed their verdict.
The ultimate irony.
Yeah.
It's hauntingly persistent. Till this date, the 2 lovers, Rukmini and Uttam Rao, alleged architects, roam scot-free, their whereabouts unknown.
And despite all the blood spilled, all the innocent lives brutally taken, no child came out of their crimes and no treasures sprung up from beneath the Peepal Tree.
Nothing gained, everything lost for the victims.
The only known whereabouts are of the inanimate disciple, the Peepal Tree itself, still standing silently in the village, a stark, unchanging witness to killings it never asked for, roots perhaps forever stained.
This story, the Manwath Murders, it raises such unsettling questions. How easily can the human mind be swayed by desperate hope, ancient beliefs, to commit unimaginable cruelties?
What's the true nature of responsibility when individuals are driven by a con man, their own anxieties, greed? And what does it say about a society, its legal system, when alleged orchestrators walk free while instruments pay the ultimate price?
A chilling, provocative thought to ponder, reminding us of the thin veil between belief and madness and the enduring quest for true justice.